more month or 2 more months, or who knows, but thank goodness for Zoom. Thank goodness you're here. I think this is a growing voice for the environment in Jacksonville. And I think we've needed this kind of coalition to make that voice heard. So thanks for being here. Now I'm very happily going to hand this over to Shannon Blankinship, whom I think all of you know, but she is the advocacy director for Riverkeeper, and she volunteered to take on this task, and we're very grateful because no one knows more about resilience than Shannon Blankinship.
That is a quite ambitious introduction, Barbara, but thank you. Thank you for that. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that everybody has seen the chat window, which is going to have the agenda for what we're going to cover today. And right after we finish with our main speaker, who I'll introduce in a minute, we'll hear from Brooks Andrews, who's going to give us a brief update on anyone that was unable to attend the City of Jacksonville Special Resiliency Committee meeting yesterday. And we'll be able to sort of hear from folks what your reactions were, and give an update to those of you that want to discuss further sort of what the next steps are with that. After that, because we haven't met in so long, I want to give time for anyone that has any updates for things that you've been doing or working on since we last met that you feel like the rest of us would benefit from hearing about or understanding. And so just making sure that we all get to connect with each other in that way. And then I'll close with trying to find out potential agenda items for the next meeting, and where we all feel like we have maybe mutual interest in topics that we'd like to cover. And also, I'd like to just highlight the mission statement that the steering committee for the Resiliency and Climate Change Coalition came up with. And so you all can sort of peruse over that and look at that. And I'll get some feedback at the end of the meeting about more ideas for objectives or goals or things that you would like to see maybe incorporated in a more long form detailed view of what it is the Resiliency and Climate Change Coalition focuses on. And so the steering committee can incorporate that and use those ideas as they continue to discuss finalizing some of these things. Before I jump over to our speaker, I'd just like to ask anyone that isn't muted to go ahead and mute yourself, and I'll try and do a little bit of housekeeping on my end. But until we get to the update section, it's just great for background noise to have folks muted, so that would be helpful. I appreciate that. And with that, let me pull up the presentation.
Shannon, do you want me to share my screen? Would that be better to click through?
Let me click stop share real quick and see if I can, I'll make you host.
No, oh, host disabled.
Oh wait, no, you can't. You can't.
Yeah,
share.
I should be able to.
Okay, go ahead. You do it. You can pull that up, and I'll go ahead and make sure that you're at. So speaker today, and I told would let her present first so that we're able to sort of reflect and take in a lot of what she's going to talk to us about today. Jeanette Ruiz is the coordinator for the Miami Climate Alliance. Jeanette joined the MCA in 2018, and she's currently the only paid staff. She has 18 years of marketing experience and was looking to take that experience and turn it into positive change for the city of Miami, where she's lived for her entire life. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. Were you able to share your screen?
No, unfortunately, it's saying it's host disabled attendee screen sharing. So it might just be if you click on that.
If you give her
option.
that function, you can do it. The share screen button.
I can make you host, but I don't see where I can give you the function to share your screen.
Okay, whichever works.
All right. Let me know if that works. You should have the
Yes.
feature now. Okay.
It
Sorry
did.
about that.
Okay, no worries.
Oh, we have, oh, it's loading.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be able to speak with you guys today. I'm really excited about what you guys are doing up in Jacksonville. We need more of these coalitions. So every time I hear that one is created, I get really, really, really pumped up. So Miami Climate Alliance, in a nutshell, it was created in 2015. A whole bunch of organizations, I think close to 100, came together and they were planning the People's Climate March. And they realized when they were going through the Miami-Dade County budget that there were $0 allocated for climate action. $0 in a 6-point-something million trillion, whatever the budget was for that year. So they advocated, they all came together. And these organizations, they weren't just environmental organizations. We had social justice, we had immigration. I mean, it was a varied group of people that came together. And from that, Miami-Dade County created the county's Office of Resilience and also the first Chief Resilience Officer. So now every year there's money allocated in the budget for climate action, and we have to stay on top of them to make sure that this money that they put aside is in fact used for resiliency efforts. Because sometimes I think in 2018's budget, they went through line by line and they put little green leaves by things that would be classified as like climate action in the budget. But when we reviewed them, some of them weren't related to resiliency. You know, some of them were like repaving the street or doing this or doing that. So we have to like make sure that they understand what is really needed for the community in terms of resiliency. So our work is never done, and it's grown to include not only just environmental issues, but also social justice issues. So just to give you a kind of recap. So I put this PowerPoint together for you guys because I'm not going to go through everything. If you want to take the time to review it on your own, please feel free to do so. I just kind of wanted to give you some high level notes in terms of like what we're all about. So I can't really see this, hold on. All right, so you guys talked about your mission statement, so I wanted to share ours. So the Miami Climate Alliance works for equity and resilience by activating community through strategic action, increasing understanding of climate change as a threat to all forms of justice, and building urgency around our shared community well-being. 5 of the things that we focus on are frontline low wealth communities of color come first, emphasize accessibility, we cast a wide net to build our base. We don't have all the answers, so we let people speak for themselves. We lead with compassion and transparency and building just relationships among ourselves. And most importantly, we win. That's the goal, right? The goal is to get stuff done. Okay, so here are our principles. We're action-oriented. We're focused on solutions addressing causes and effects of climate change. We are a dynamic network of individuals and organizations working toward equity and climate justice. We are locally focused on tangible wins for people in the natural and built environment. We are informed by peer-reviewed climate science, our direct experience, and documented and projected impacts in our region. And we are committed to a democratic governance, operational transparency, and open data sharing. And you'll see throughout this entire thing, what I'm presenting to you has been seen by pretty much everybody who wants it in Miami. Everything that we work on, our budget, our strategic planning, everything is transparent. We don't hide any information from anybody. If someone wants to hop on a phone call for our steering committee, they can hop on the phone call. So we really take transparency seriously because we want to have everyone know that all of us matter and that we all have a voice in the future of our city. So this is our structure. This is our org chart. So we have member organizations, and then we have area residents that are members as well. They're at the very top because they are the most important. Under that, we have working groups. So we'll get to that a little later. But then we have the standing committees, and then we also have me as a coordinator, the only paid staff member. And then we have the steering committee. So our standing committees, we have a communications committee, we have a development committee, which focuses on grants and just fundraising. We have a legislative committee, and we have an outreach committee. And then our working groups currently consist of a disaster resilience working group, Miami, we have a clean energy working group, a Resilient Miami, which is now focusing on housing, affordable housing. And then we have housing affordability and climate gentrification. Those two have kind of combined, but they do work on different things. Shannon, I don't know if you wanted to, if someone has a question for them to jump in as I'm talking, or do you want to wait for the end?
I prefer if you got through the presentation and then we do questions at the end, if that's okay.
No worries. Okay, so pre-COVID, we would have general meetings, general public meetings 4 times a year. Last year we did February, June, September, and December. And our December one was like a holiday party. So it was really fun. We got together, we had a drum circle, we had some, some games. So it was like really great. But as you can see from February to December, our group continues to grow. And one of the things that we noticed from last year is because the more transparent we were being, the more people became trusting of the organization, and the more they kind of like bought in, like the more they committed to the MCA. One thing that we did differently last year as well was we had a leadership retreat. So we took all of the executive directors and decision makers from our member organizations and the leaders in certain communities, even if they weren't tied to an org, we got them together in a room and we had a retreat. And what we did was we said, we're gonna put together a strategic plan for 2020 and 2021. And we wanna know, what do you think are our top priority items? So you can't see it in the picture below, but we had like those really big sticky notepads, and everybody put down their idea. I mean, it was just like, we had it at the Miami-Dade Public Library. So we had a lot of space and everybody put down their ideas. And we narrowed them down and we followed up with them. And eventually we got to a strategic plan. Once that was done, then we just blasted it out to the community to get feedback on it. These are some of the events that we sponsored. So if you're a member organization and you're having an event, you can come to the steering committee and you can say, we want the MCA to support our event. They'll vote on it. And once it gets approved, then all of the resources that we have and all the time that we can dedicate to that event, that's what we do. So there is a process. It's not just like because you're a member of the MCA, we automatically support your event. It has to do with, can we fit it in? Because there's we have close to 100 member organizations at this point. So it gets to be a little overwhelming. Miami Climate Month is one that we did. And like I said, I'm not gonna go through each line item, but so Hurricane Dorian response. I wanted to highlight this because after Hurricane Irma, our disaster resilience group, they created a community emergency operations center. What this is a standalone building that collects supplies and essentially goes out into the public and helps anybody who needs it. So our most vulnerable populations, we call our elderly community, we call our vulnerable populations, and we say to them, hey, what is it that you need? Do you have water? Do you have a tarp? So we have a central location that people know that they can come and pick up supplies. And then we also have hubs set up in different locations. So whatever we fundraise or whatever supplies that we collect, we can also distribute to these hubs. And for Hurricane Dorian, it was our most successful yet, because not only were we able to service the people in our community, but then we shifted gears once Hurricane Dorian went to Bahamas, and we just kept like collecting supplies and shipping it off to the Bahamas. And it was really incredible to see how the community came together and how the Community Emergency Operations Center was birthed. And just, you'll see what happens now with COVID and what we're doing with it. This is some of the media coverage that we got last year. These are some of the legislative wins. Again, I'll let you guys look at that if you want. And then this is our budget for last year. So all of our funding comes from grants. And we have a few that are consistent, but then some of them are based on if we have a specific event, like you'll see 350.org and DMOS, it says PCM, that was for the People's Climate March, because we were planning a People's Climate March for 2018, I think it was. And again, all of this information is always shared with the public. The 7% fee that you see is because we are, we have a fiscal sponsor, because we're not incorporated. We are not a 501c3. They are, so they take us under their wing, and they handle all of our finances. So I also added the strategic plan for you guys to take a look at. What we narrowed it down to from all of the feedback was that the MCA basically will focus on 3 core ideas: organize, communicate, and resource. And under those 3 categories, we added what we want to work on for the year and what we're able to contribute to our member organizations. And like I said, after we narrowed everything down and we got the feedback and we put it out there, it was voted on and it was accepted at the 2019 holiday party. So that was December. And then COVID happened. So we were supposed to have our meeting in March. We have our elections every year for the steering committee. So once you're elected to the steering committee, you have 2 years. And you have an option to run again. So some of our members were up for re-election, some of them were termed out, but we never got to have that meeting because of COVID. So we had to switch gears. Our CEOC activated. Obviously, it wasn't how we've done it in the past. We activated with an information hotline in 3 languages. So we did some phone bank training. We got a whole bunch of volunteers on a Zoom call. And we're like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to call our vulnerable communities. We're going to call our elderly communities. We're going to see, what do they know about COVID? Educate them. Do they need testing? Are they sick? Then we created a street team, and the street team went out to service the houseless community. We have a doctor, we have several doctors on the Dade County street response team, and they go out and they do assessments, and they bought their own tests, and they went out into the community, tested the houseless, and if they were exhibiting symptoms, they got them shelter. It's really incredible what they've been doing. Our advocacy work obviously also had to shift, so we had to start focusing on, reaching out to FPL and saying, you're not really being clear on what you mean by forgiveness or by taking out late fee, removing late fees, or not charging, customers for certain things or whatever. So we've had to completely request transparency from not only companies, but then also from our government as to how they're going to help people get through this crisis. We created mutual aid funds. So anybody who needs it, there weren't any qualifications. If you lived in Miami-Dade, if you, this one focused on families who reside at Miami-Dade and Atlanta, because the partner that we have also has an office in Atlanta, and then also with mothers. So all you would do is you fill out a form and you would get $75 to $125, depending on the size of your family. And we fundraise for that. And we've also shifted to do a lot of our training online. So we keep reaching out to our members and to the community and saying, what is it that you need from us? Like, what do you need help with? And a lot of them are like, well, this CARES Act, how does this benefit me? I'm a small business owner, or I'm an entrepreneur, or, I'm in the gig industry or whatever. It's like, how do I get assistance? Like, how can people help me? How can the government help me? So we created this webinar. We noticed that with a lot of these trainings, also that there were people in the community who couldn't participate. If you spoke Spanish or if you spoke Creole, a lot of these trainings weren't accessible to you because there weren't any interpreters. So we did a building the linguistic bridges training, and we had somebody that we use all the time who she has interpreters in Spanish and in Creole and a whole bunch of other languages also. And that was hugely popular with our membership. We had one just the other day using social media for advocacy during COVID-19. And it was the same thing. We got 5 of our member organizations to come talk to our group. Let me get something to drink. I'm like, I need to take a break. Yeah, because, you know, a lot of our organizations, they don't have the manpower, right? It's like they were spread thin before COVID. And now a lot of the issues that they were advocating for have kind of really come to the surface. So they're trying to do as much as they can with the resources that they have. And social media is one of those things where you can really use it to your benefit and get the most bang for your buck, so to speak. So the feedback that we got from our membership was like, you know, can we have something with social media? Can you show us like what's working for you guys, or like things that we can do that may not cost us a lot of money or time, but still have a lot of, but have a great effect on our community and our advocacy. And then we also post everything on our YouTube channel. So that link right there takes you to the replay. And that's it. There's so much more that I could talk about, but I just wanted to give you just, you know, just some details and stuff on what we did last year and what we're doing this year. And any questions?
Well, I'll just say thank you so much, Jeanette, for being here and talking about this, especially, you know, the governance and structure of the Alliance. As we're a new organization here in Ville, I think that it's really to see, you know, what Miami has done. As the city of Jacksonville continues to organize, I think more strategically, how they are talking about the resiliency issue, the nonprofit community, I think, hasn't itself aligned, you know, all the various organizations and entities that care about this issue until now. And so being able to learn from Miami is really valuable. And I think you guys are doing really great work. You're obviously, your scope is at this point much broader than ours is, but I think it's really valuable to see, you know, why and how you've broadened that scope to help us to also understand that, you know, resiliency and climate change is about much more than environmental issues. And so a big question I think a lot of us have been asking is how we would engage more with other neighborhood groups or organizations that maybe don't necessarily understand how resiliency matters to them. And so I think you've shown how putting yourself into the neighborhoods has been how you have approached gaining more neighborhood involvement. And so maybe if you just want to speak a little bit to, you know, how people learned about you and why they got involved if they weren't an organization, you know, that has a mission that is aligned with resiliency.
Yeah, one of the things that I mentioned before is about how we don't have all the answers, so we let others speak for themselves. And I think that has been one of the most smartest, I guess, strategies, if you will, for us, because there are organizations who are working right now, I'm sure, in Jacksonville or in neighboring cities that are doing very similar work to what you guys are doing, maybe just under a different lens. So by you allowing, but like you kind of like joining forces with resources and time to continue to let them lead, but knowing that they have your support, you know, and then you'll eventually things will just come together and you build that trust, right? And like they'll come to you and they'll tell you, look, this is what we need, this is what we're working on. So I think that's been the best thing. It's just kind of building that leadership that already exists.
We do have several questions in the chat window. If you want, I can just read some to you so that way you can try to address them. First of all, to Josh, yes, I have the PowerPoint, so I'd be happy to email it to everybody after the meeting. And I'm also recording the presentation today, so I'll be able to send you the recording of that if that's helpful. Nancy Powell with Scenic Jacksonville has asked, can you talk about how you work specifically with the city of Miami and city officials?
Yeah. So we do have relationships with, it's interesting because a lot of the people who used to be a part of the MCA, they've gone on to either run for office and win, or they're on their staff, right? So we have all of these relationships from way back when, and we work together because of those relationships. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And I think it's because we have this presence with so many different member organizations, and we use it, right? We use the power of numbers to amplify our message. So a lot of times when we're advocating for something and we send out a letter to one of our city officials, like they know, okay, it's the Miami Climate Alliance, and that means it's not just them, it's a whole bunch of other different organizations. So I think by this point we have an established name, and when we reach out to them, they listen to us. It takes time. It does take time.
A question from Josh Rosenberg of Native Jax asked, what barriers did you encounter while building the coalition?
Trust. A lot of people who do this work, they see time and time again, someone will get a grant, an organization will get a grant, and they'll be tasked to do something, and they'll come in, they'll do it, and then they'll never see them again. So we had to show that we were not going anywhere, that we really do care about Miami, and we care about everyone in Miami, not just a certain pocket of Miami. So that was definitely the biggest barrier, was trust.
Kind of to add on to that, Laura asked, do you work with all the communities in Miami-Dade County?
Pretty much. Like I said, like a lot of our member organizations, they focus on certain communities just because of the scope of their work. So some are in South Dade, some are in Little Haiti, some are in Little Havana. And we make sure we try as much as possible to have our meetings all over Miami so that it gives people a chance to get to them. We make sure that there's public transportation nearby. And now with Zoom, obviously it's open to everybody. But yeah, we try to cover the whole city and the whole county, really.
Brooks Andrews asked, what would you say your top 3 policy successes have been since the formation of the Alliance?
Oh, that's hard. You can check the legislative wins. There's a lot. There's really a lot. Because like I said, like a lot of it, we come as a coalition. So if one of our organizations gets a win and we're behind it, we consider it a win. So there's a ton. You'll see it on the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I can see that being kind of difficult to track when you have so many people in the coalition.
Yeah.
John had asked if you will discuss some of the grants that you received. He actually asked if you would go back to the funding chart, but I don't want to go back into the PowerPoint view right yet, but maybe if you could just talk about the grants, how they were received, maybe who within your governance structure, how you apply for grants, and that would be helpful for us.
Yeah, we've been fortunate in the respect that Miami's ground zero, right? So when the MCA came together and people started to pay attention to its strength and how it was growing, a lot of these grantors, they reached out to us. So the Solutions Project came to us, New Venture Fund, and those have primarily been the 2 big ones for us. And we have about 2 or 3 people on our development committee, and they're responsible for putting the grant together, like wordsmithing it or whatever. And they usually come to us with specific asks. But what happened over time from my position specifically was that they realized they needed somebody to be a full-time person who could kind of organize everything for them, because it's 100% volunteer based, and as you know, things happen, life happens, and it's hard to keep an organization going if you don't have somebody to be responsible for it. So they kind of pitched that to the Solutions Project, and they agreed. So everything since then has been building off of the work that they've been able to do with my position.
Well, thank you for that. And I want to be cognizant of the rest of our agenda. So I have one last that I think is a really good one, especially for us. So you mentioned the People's Climate Movement March, and then also some other marches. But what do you think were some things that you guys did early on that brought a lot of attention to the Miami Climate Alliance and sort of helped establish yourself as you know, as strong of an organization as you are now?
You know, we're really big on social media, and also we have a newsletter that we send out every week where we amplify all of our member organizations' events, call to actions. And like I said, it was really just about building the trust and showing that it's not just us trying to push our message on people. We're also here to support everyone who's a member. So we built it up over time. And then, you know, unfortunately, there are hurricanes that come up, and there's there's always a crisis that you can use, I guess, to your advantage to amplify your message, as horrible as that sounds, but it's true. So a lot of times, like, we just were there, you know, we were there helping out, and more and more people saw our name, and it just kind of grew.
Jeanette, thank you so much for your time today, for joining us. I do have Jeanette's PowerPoint presentation that I'll send to everybody that had the breakdown of the finances, the breakdown of the working groups, and great even web links as well to some of your other resources and pages. So I'll be able to send that out to everyone. And I really just appreciate you spending the time with us and giving us your guidance, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to just reach out to Shannon, and she could forward them to me. So good luck, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.